Queen Camilla has just been thrown out of the palace, and it's not a rumor. After a shocking investigation, she's been found guilty in connection to Princess Diana's tragic accident. Secret files, voice recordings, and hidden letters finally exposed the truth. What came next? A royal downfall like never before. The hidden inquiry that changed everything. In March 2025, everything changed behind palace gates. Prince William, without a single public word, authorized a secret internal probe into the 1997 death of Princess Diana. It was codenamed Operation Orchid, and almost no one knew it was happening. For nearly 3 decades, Diana's fatal crash in the Alma Tunnel in Paris was seen as a tragic accident. But this inquiry re-examined the 3-day timeline leading up to that night, and what it uncovered shook the very walls of Buckingham Palace. One of the first findings was shocking. Official security logs from August 30th, 1997, showed that Diana's protective detail was suddenly downgraded from 4 officers to just 1. This wasn't a casual change. It was a critical drop just hours before she entered the tunnel. What's worse, redacted documents from 2003 had already raised alarm bells back then, but were quietly dismissed without review. The deeper the inquiry dug, the darker it got. A former French investigator, Jean-Luc Martin, testified under oath that in September 1997, certain files from the crash report were altered. At the request of the British Embassy, why would Britain ask to change the records of a French investigation? The timing was more than suspicious. It was deliberate. But nothing prepared the investigators for what they found next. An encrypted MI6 audio file, dated August 29, 1997 at 22:15, contained a voice that analysts later confirmed as Camilla's, her words? "Are you sure the escort can wait?" That very escort, the one responsible for Diana's safety, ended up delayed by 45 minutes. That delay changed the course of history. The car crash that took Diana's life happened shortly after midnight on August 31st. "The more we found," one palace aide said, "the harder it became to pretend this was just a tragedy. This was orchestrated." And once William saw the early findings himself, he didn't hesitate. He took the next step, and that's where the storm really began. The damning voice and the missing guards. Just weeks after Operation Orchid launched, MI6 handed over 5 encrypted recordings tied to internal activity from August 1997. One of them had a female voice, low and steady, asking questions about Diana's motorcade voice print technology confirmed what some in the palace feared. It was Camilla. The recording was logged 2 days before the crash, and what she said was chilling. "Are you sure the escort can wait?" That one sentence made headlines around the world. But the recording was just the beginning. Operation Orchid's audit also found palace surveillance logs from Clarence House, showing emails sent with the internal label, Legacy ISI. That phrase had never been linked to Diana's accident before, but it appeared multiple times between August 28th and 30th. Always from palace staff close to Camilla's personal circle. These weren't regular messages. They included phrases like, "Destabilizing risk must be managed," and "Timing alteration confirmed." But even more disturbing was the detail uncovered about Diana's security that night. The guard shift records showed that her team was intentionally reduced from 4 officers to just 1. And that change happened exactly 17 minutes before her departure from the Ritz Hotel. The rest were reassigned at the last second with no written explanation. William, after hearing the audio and reading the files, was reportedly silent for hours. Later, he told a senior investigator, "This wasn't incompetence, this was betrayal." With surveillance logs, email metadata, and now Camilla's voice tied to the timeline, this was no longer just suspicion. This was a direct link between royal authority and the moment Diana's car sped toward its final turn, and William wasn't about to let it stay buried. What came next was something no one inside the palace had dared before: a royal arrest warrant. And the target? Camilla, Queen Consort of the United Kingdom. Diana's letters resurface, and everything clicks. Just when the investigation into Diana's death felt explosive, something even more personal surfaced: her own words. In June 2025, forensic experts in Edinburgh authenticated 2 handwritten letters by Diana, written in October 1996 and June 1997, just 10 weeks before the crash. These weren't diary entries. They were warnings. One read, "Camilla has more power than anyone believes." The other, a clear message of fear. "There is a move underway. If anything happens to me on the trip, open this." These letters had been sealed for 29 years, hidden in a private vault once owned by her former butler, Paul Burrell. They were protected, untouched, until Prince William invoked emergency override authority after receiving findings from Operation Orchid. And once opened, the entire investigation shifted. The letters were more than just emotional. They were legal testimony from beyond the grave. Analysts confirmed the ink, paper, and handwriting all matched Diana's known stationery from Kensington Palace. Even more telling, email metadata from Clarence House, recovered during the same inquiry, included messages with phrases like, "Destabilization may be required," and "Legacy transition timeline." These emails were sent just days before Diana wrote her final letter. The timing was too precise to ignore. The connection between Diana's private warnings and the palace's internal strategy emails exposed a chilling pattern. On June 15th, major UK broadcasters released images of the letters to the public. By nightfall, #JusticeForDiana was trending in 81 countries, and Parliament began preparing for an emergency debate. One journalist said it best: "She tried to warn us in life, and now, in death, she's finally being heard." But Diana's voice wasn't the only one echoing through the palace halls. Someone else had been digging, and this time, she followed the money. Princess Anne connects the financial dots. While the world reeled from Diana's letters, Princess Anne stepped forward with her own investigation. Unwilling to rely on theories or emotion, Anne went after the one thing people couldn't ignore: money. In July 2025, she ordered a private audit of Clarence House accounts from 1996 to 1998, and what she found was staggering. On August 29, 1997, just 2 days before the crash, $2.4 million was wired from an offshore trust in the Cayman Islands to a private Paris-based firm called Lucentia Global. This firm had no known ties to MI6, the royal household, or any verified security agency. Their only assignment? A classified vehicle transfer and surveillance disruption contract, scheduled for the same weekend Diana was in Paris. It was all too close, too quiet, too convenient. Even more chilling were the emails Anne's team uncovered. Messages between Harrison Dent, Camilla's longtime aide, and Lucentia's UK contact included this sentence: "Final assurance required. Delays are non-attributable." That line alone was enough to trigger cyber forensics. Investigators confirmed the emails were sent from encrypted palace servers in Berkshire, dated August 20th, 1997. This wasn't speculation anymore. It was a paper trail, complete with bank records, contracts, and server logs. Anne took the entire file directly to King Charles, presenting the evidence in a private audience at Windsor Castle on July 12th. According to insiders, Charles sat in total silence for 40 minutes, flipping through the documents, staring at the financial transfers and internal emails. Then Anne spoke. "She killed our mother's peace." Charles didn't argue. He didn't defend. He quietly said, "Do what must be done." And that's when the palace walls truly began to crack. Because the next step wouldn't be hidden behind desks or emails. It would happen face to face, and for the first time in royal history, a queen would be arrested inside the palace. William demands Camilla's arrest inside the palace. On July 16, 2025, Prince William did the unthinkable. After weeks of reviewing Operation Orchid's findings, the audio, emails, financials, and Diana's letters, he made a move no future king had ever dared before. At 9 a.m., in a secured room inside Kensington Palace, he signed a royal warrant under the Crown Integrity Act of 2019. The target? Camilla Parker Bowles, Queen Consort of the United Kingdom. The warrant authorized immediate palace-level confinement and classified investigation into her role in the conspiracy that led to Princess Diana's death. By mid-afternoon, everything moved with precision. Scotland Yard's Royal Security Division arrived at Clarence House in 2 unmarked vehicles. Camilla, reportedly on a private call with her sister Annabel Elliot, was interrupted by a senior officer who quietly informed her, "Under sovereign order, you are being placed under palace confinement, pending active review of state-related interference." According to staff who witnessed it, Camilla froze, her voice flat, and said only one word, "William." At 4:10 p.m., the formal arrest order, now carrying the monarch's seal, was presented to King Charles III in his private study at Windsor Castle. He said nothing for a full minute, then reportedly whispered, "For Diana, for the truth," and signed it. That evening, Camilla was transferred under heavy security to the East Wing of Balmoral, where she was placed under 24/7 monitored house arrest. Her communications were locked. Her title remained, but her power was over. The Queen Consort was now a prisoner, not in a courtroom, but in a castle. And the Crown, for the first time in decades, was preparing to put one of its own on trial. The trial that broke the crown. It began on July 24th, 2025, inside the majestic yet solemn halls of Westminster Hall. Under the towering portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, the tribunal assembled. The charges were unprecedented: conspiracy to defraud the sovereign estate, defamation of Princess Diana, and obstruction of historical truth. In attendance were royal advisors, state-appointed counsel, and international observers. At the center of it all sat Camilla, silent, expressionless, and alone. The evidence was overwhelming. Tribunal officials presented Diana's handwritten letters, MI6 surveillance files, and the Lucentia Global payment trail. But the moment that shattered the room came when the encrypted audio file, Camilla's voice, played aloud. "Are you sure the escort can wait?" The same question that haunted Diana's final hour now echoed through history's most symbolic courtroom. The recording was followed by a digital timeline of intercepted emails, redacted security shifts, and financial transfers executed within a 48-hour window before Diana's death. Then came the voice the world was waiting for. Prince William took the stand on July 25th. He looked directly at the tribunal, his voice steady. He read Diana's final letter, the one hidden for nearly 30 years. "If anything happens to me on this trip, open this." The courtroom fell silent. William continued, "We all failed her, but I will not fail her again." When asked if he believed Camilla was involved in Diana's death, William replied, "I believe she knew and she acted." On July 28th, the verdict was delivered. Guilty. Camilla was formally stripped of her ceremonial roles and privileges. She would remain confined, indefinitely exiled from public life. Her royal identity was intact on paper, but erased in spirit. The monarchy had just witnessed its greatest reckoning, and it wasn't over yet. Camilla is banished, royal prisoner on Isle of Skye. On August 2, 2025, before sunrise, a private royal aircraft departed from RAF Northolt, bound for Scotland. On board was Camilla Parker Bowles, now stripped of all ceremonial duties and under full confinement order from the Crown Tribunal. Her destination wasn't a palace. It was a heavily secured estate on the Isle of Skye, known historically as a remote royal retreat, now transformed into a classified detention zone for the monarchy's most controversial figure. Camilla arrived just after 7 a.m., escorted by 6 royal protection officers, and was quietly moved into the eastern lodge of the estate. The terms were strict: no access to phones, internet, or unsupervised communication, a 6-person staff limit, and constant surveillance. She was no longer an active royal, no longer a public figure. She was, in the quiet words of one aide, a velvet prisoner. The estate itself had been reinforced weeks earlier, once the trial verdict was clear. Guards were rotated every 12 hours. No visitors were allowed beyond immediate family, and even they had to seek special clearance. Camilla's own children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, were reportedly barred from any press appearances. Their careers, once buoyed by royal proximity, were now under scrutiny. Back in London, officials finalized the removal of Camilla's access to the sovereign grant. Her upkeep, food, transportation, clothing would be funded exclusively from her personal assets and private family trusts. No taxpayer support. No palace privileges. She was still addressed formally in state records as Queen Consort, but only because the monarchy had not yet declared a complete title removal. That move, insiders said, may still be coming. The press called it a soft exile. But those inside the royal circuit knew it was something much harsher. Camilla was classified as a national security risk. Her name had been permanently removed from upcoming state invitations. Her portraits were taken down from official gallery walls. Her crest was deleted from digital archives, and most shockingly, her funeral arrangements were revoked from the Royal Vault Protocol. A silent message that even in death, her place in the family was no longer assured. One insider put it bluntly, "She's not gone, but she's erased." The public, still processing the fallout, began to demand more. With Camilla out of sight, their attention turned to King Charles, and questions began piling up about how much he knew and how long he stayed silent. Because while Camilla had been banished, the most explosive file was still to come. One that pointed not just to complicity, but to a decades-long cover-up sealed by the king himself. The Charles-Camilla Pact is exposed. On August 9, 2025, just 1 week after Camilla's quiet relocation, The Times published a leaked document that sent shockwaves through Parliament. The file was labeled Protocol 97, a confidential agreement drafted in September 1997, just 2 weeks after Diana's funeral. and signed by both Charles Philip Arthur George and Clarence House's legal division. The contents were devastating. Charles knew Camilla posed a risk and chose to protect her anyway. According to the file, Charles had been briefed on early irregularities surrounding Diana's crash, including the missing security records, altered French documents, and the internal surveillance tapes. Yet rather than push for a full inquiry, the Prince of Wales at the time signed a clause agreeing to internal resolution and reputational containment. The reason? Monarchical continuity and public morale preservation. In short, protect the image at all costs. What stunned officials most wasn't just the secrecy, it was the timeline. Protocol 97 was initiated while Diana's sons were still in mourning. It guaranteed Camilla a complete security shield, barring her from legal exposure unless evidential threat reaches sovereign-level breach. That clause would now come back to haunt the entire royal institution. As public outrage mounted, Parliament issued an emergency summons. On August 10th, Charles made a brief televised statement from Sandringham House, his face pale, his voice steady. "I loved her enough to protect her," he said, "even when I feared the worst. That was my choice, and I carry it alone." The confession was quiet, but it triggered an explosion. Within 48 hours, #ProtectDiana reached over 5 million posts, trending in 31 countries. Protesters gathered outside Buckingham Palace, Downing Street, and Holyrood, carrying signs that read, "She knew he let her." Polls showed that 76% of the British public believed Charles should now formally step back from state duties. Even some MPs began debating constitutional options, including temporary abdication. The leak also had consequences beyond Britain. International broadcasters aired full retrospectives of Diana's final months. French officials reopened cold case elements of the Paris crash, and legal experts speculated that Protocol 97 could expose the monarchy to international liability, especially due to MI6 interference in foreign investigations. One palace insider summarized the panic. "Camilla was the fire, but Charles lit the match." Behind the palace gates, senior advisors scrambled to protect what little stability remained. Because if one more secret leaked, the institution might not survive it. But amid the chaos, one figure remained calm, and she was already taking steps to protect Diana's legacy for good. Catherine secures Diana's legacy forever. On August 18, 2025, while the palace was still reeling from the Protocol 97 fallout, Princess Catherine made a move that no royal had ever done before. She bypassed the crown itself. In a private document signed at Kensington Palace and verified by the Royal Archives, Catherine formally transferred the personal belongings of Princess Diana not to the estate, not to the institution, but to her own daughter, Princess Charlotte. This wasn't a symbolic gesture. It was legal, and it was permanent. The items included the Spencer tiara, Diana's most iconic sapphire ring, handwritten journals from 1981 to 1996, and over 200 personal letters. Catherine arranged for these treasures to be stored in a new, high-security facility beneath the Wales residence, protected not by the Crown's estate guardians, but by private trustees from a newly formed organization, the Wales Legacy Trust. At the center of the trust's formation was Lady Rachel Montford, a longtime advisor to Diana's charity work and a fiercely respected legal scholar. Her mission, as outlined in the Trust Charter, was to preserve Diana's memory, release untold archives to the public, and defend the late princess's name against historical defamation by political or royal narratives. When asked why she created it, Catherine said only, "This isn't about ownership. It's about guardianship." The public responded immediately. Over 400,000 letters flooded into the royal mailbox in under a week. Messages from nurses, single mothers, teenagers, widows. They all said the same thing. Thank you for protecting her. But what made the moment even more powerful was what Catherine did not do. She made no speech. She gave no interviews. She didn't appear on television. Instead, she released a single photo, Charlotte in Diana's old study, holding a pressed white rose beside a frame that read, "She taught us how to love without fear." Behind palace walls, her actions were called quietly revolutionary. She had honored a woman the monarchy once buried in silence, and done it without asking permission. Even King Charles, still under scrutiny, was forced to acknowledge the gesture. On August 21st, he sent a private letter to Catherine, thanking her for restoring the dignity Diana was too often denied. But outside the walls of royalty, the public's mind was already made up. Diana's legacy no longer belonged to the palace. It belonged to the people, and Catherine had delivered it back into their hands. And then, on September 1st, exactly 28 years after Diana's death, the people answered with a message of their own. The people's verdict: Camilla out, Catherine in. It happened quietly at first. A few hashtags, small gatherings, handwritten signs outside Kensington Palace. But by September 1st, 2025, it had become a national movement. Across London, Cardiff, Manchester, Glasgow, and Edinburgh, crowds began pouring into the streets. The message was clear. Camilla was finished. Diana must be honored. And Catherine had become the people's choice. The moment wasn't orchestrated by the palace. It didn't come from press briefings or coordinated royal fanfare. It came from the streets, from people who had grown up with Diana, mourned her loss, watched the scandals, and lived through the cover-ups. Now, they were reclaiming the story. By midday, over 31 countries were trending global hashtags like hashtag Camilla is gone, hashtag Diana deserved better, and hashtag long live Catherine. News stations interrupted regular broadcasts to show drone footage of the massive Diana March through the mall, with over 150,000 participants carrying candles, flowers, and signs that read, "We remember." At Althorpe House, Diana's childhood home, a black Land Rover pulled up just after 3 p.m. Out stepped Princess Catherine, hand in hand with Princess Charlotte. The two walked in silence through the iron gates and placed a single white rose on the grass by Diana's grave. The photo, Charlotte kneeling, Catherine standing with her head bowed, was shared over 80 million times in 24 hours. No words were needed. One caption simply read, "The crown was never on her head. It was always in her heart." Back at the palace, polling data told the rest of the story. A nationwide YouGov report revealed that 81% of Britons supported permanently removing Camilla's royal identity. Even more staggering, Catherine's approval rating hit 89%, higher than any living royal, even surpassing Queen Elizabeth II's at the height of her reign. Within days, members of Parliament began floating a quiet but powerful proposal to formally recognize Catherine, Princess of Wales, as the public's symbolic matriarch, and to restrict the title of Queen Consort from being passed unless reviewed by Parliament in future reigns. The monarchy had survived countless storms, abdications, divorces, scandals, but never had it seen such a total public shift in allegiance. The people had made their decision. Camilla was done. Diana was vindicated. And Catherine had stepped into a role bigger than crown, throne, or title. She had become the keeper of a legacy, the living bridge between heartbreak and healing, and the quiet force behind the royal family's most powerful redemption arc. Camilla is gone, exiled, and disgraced. Diana's truth is no longer buried. It's reigning. As the crown faces a reckoning, one woman rises. Catherine, the people's choice justice wasn't swift, but it came. And now the monarchy must answer a new question. What happens when the truth wears the crown?